With me today from Eurasia Mining, I'm joined in the studio by Dmytry Sущёв. Dmytry, good to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much for inviting me here.
Please do tell me a little bit more about yourself and your involvement at Eurasia.
Right. So I'm an investor in the mining space, and I'm following long-term trends in the mining space. I've been in some strategic minerals, and what I've been doing is I've been investing at early stage, de-risking projects, moving them from exploration stage to feasibility, and sometimes even to production, like in case with Eurasia. And then I've been selling a number of projects to strategic investors that to include, for example, a sale of silicon carbide, silicon mining silicon carbide used for solar applications, and that was a hot topic in the past, and still is actually. I almost sold to Saint-Gobain, the largest player in the industry, and then the Indian Murugappa group made a better bid, and we closed this deal back in 2007. And then I sold one of the businesses to Gazprom Bank, one of the largest Russian banks, and one of the also natural resource businesses to Danish fund, and also metallurgical coal business, which was a couple of years ago. So now I'm entirely focused on Eurasia, and I think Eurasia is high quality assets. So it's primarily two assets which we're focused on. One is West Kytlim, which is in the southern Urals part of Russia. And West Kytlim is the mine which is in production. It started as a joint venture with Anglo-American, the world's largest platinum producer, about 40% global market share in platinum. And that was a 50-50 joint venture, started the year 2000, and we've been doing the exploration works, a very comprehensive exploration program on a big chunk of land of about 150 square kilometers. And then in 2014, Anglo decided to leave everything outside South Africa, which wasn't the wise decision, I think, and now I think they have changed their mind in this regard. But that gave us an opportunity to buy Anglo share at a very good price, and then basically we started production 2 years ago, 2016, and pilot scale and industrial scale 2018. So it's very rare for the junior mining companies to go into production, and we've been already in production for quite some time, successfully, and most recently, September, just last month, we completely took over the production from contractors, because previously the contractors were consuming most of the margin, and now we enjoy 100% of the margin. So that's a significant milestone which we achieved last month. And plus, we expanded our production license from 20 square kilometers to over 100 square kilometers, which is very significant because we drilled, as I mentioned, a much bigger area, 150 square kilometers more or less, and we're just expanding within this area, which we drilled in joint venture for like 15 years. So we know this area very well. So that's our one asset, and we have a basket of metals there, which is the four PGMs, the platinum, palladium, iridium, and rhodium, and a little bit of gold. Now everybody talks about palladium, but I understand that. At the same time, we have rhodium. Very significant credit for rhodium, and rhodium is $5,000 per ounce. So it's much higher price than palladium and all the other metals in our basket. So that's what we do there, and there are companies that are operating in this similar space where West Kytlim is, and West Kytlim is the largest producer in its sort in the soft rock. We call it soft rock because it's very similar to hard rock open pit operation, but you don't need to blast, you just straight excavate. That's why it's soft rock. And that basically means that the cost is very low. So it's typical open pit. You just don't need to drill and blast prior to excavation, and that reduces the cost significantly.
What are your costs?
I think we put it in the public domain, so I can announce that it's within the range of $300 to $400 per ounce. So even with platinum price staying around 900, letting on other metals like palladium, which is 1800, and iridium approximately the same price as palladium, and rhodium, as I mentioned, $5,000 per ounce. So with this basket we're in a very good shape, and obviously being the low-cost producer like Norilsk Nickel, which is the largest palladium producer in the world, we will be the last one to die if something happens to the prices, but we don't expect the prices to go down because they're in structural deficit. So that's where we are.
So how much did you say you're currently producing at the moment?
Right, so the maximum rate which we achieved per day is about 7 kilograms per day, which is about 200 ounces per day. So it's quite a significant rate, and to be sustainable with this kind of rate, we are now undertaking quite a significant exercise. So we acquired our own enrichment plant earlier this year, and we took over production from contractors because the contractors are unsustainable. They always trying to renegotiate and sign different terms with you, threatening to leave the site, etc., etc. So we just learned the hard way over the 4 years of production, pilot production, industrial production since 2018. So we learned it the hard way, and now we decided that we can do it ourselves because since 2016 we were gradually building our own team, and we just proved recently that we can do it ourselves without any contractors, and that's first of all gives us 100% of the margin, which is good, so we get more cash, and secondly, and more importantly, is that it's more sustainable, because with contractors, you know, they are leaving the site and saying they won't resume until you resign the terms and give them higher margin, etc., etc. So it just goes to and fro, and it's much more reliable when you are doing it yourself.
And what are you doing at Moncha Tundra?
In Moncha Tundra, we at the moment are doing preparatory works on the ground with our own team. Plus, we use very reliable contractors to include, for example, CKE, which is the company that works for a number of strategic investors in the region. To mention a few, Barrick Gold, which is the world's largest gold company, which has a palladium project just 150 kilometers distance from Moncha Tundra. So further into Russia. So Barrick has a palladium project in Russia, close to us. So CK used to do work for those, for Barracks, and then basically also for Norilsk Nickel and for Bito Gold, for other big companies. So they're reliable people. We worked with them throughout our exploration stage. Also on this project, again, Moncha Tundra project started as a joint venture with Anglo American in a 50-50 way. We started drilling later. We started drilling in 2005, so 5 years later in the West Kitlan. That's why it's coming to production later, so it's natural cycle. And again, we drilled quite a big chunk of land, and we received, similar to West Kitlan, a much smaller production license. However, we have the right to get additional area within 5 kilometers around our license. And then basically 5 kilometers to each of the sites. And that's what we've done. We already announced it, put it in the public domain, and we know the area well because we drilled it ourselves. Plus it has been drilled by a number of our colleagues, like Norilsk Nickel has been drilling one of those areas. But Norilsk Nickel is, of course, the world's largest palladium producer, so they are really sitting on their very rich and huge deposit in Temir. So for them, those bits and pieces that they were drilling are not so significant, but if you just combine all of them together, they become quite significant for independent producers like us.
Well, as you point out, it's palladium in particular which is getting everybody excited at the moment. How much have you got across your projects? What's your resource?
Right, so basically I can only operate with numbers which we announced, right, because I'm a director of the company. So we have initially received a smaller license, similar to the way we did at West Kitlan. So as I mentioned there, we started with like 150 kilometers and then got a license for about 20 square kilometers, just tiny bit of that. And then we applied for flanks, 5 kilometers around it. So now our total area at West Kitlan is 117, 118 square kilometers. So it's just getting practically the size of our exploration license of 150 kilometers. So that's how it works, and basically we follow the same steps and leveraging our experience. A little bit boring, but it's good to leverage in your own experience. We again initially got a much small license, and this covers about 2 million ounces of palladium equivalent, and primarily palladium. And then we applied for flanks area, and our chairman recently in one of our RNSs, I think it was last week, put forward the number of 15 million ounces of palladium.
Right.
And I trust him because he's one of the top geologists on a global scale, one of the founders of CSA Global, which is top mining advisory, and he's done a number of discoveries waiting for industry, for big companies, and now we're grateful to have him on our team. So yeah, that's what we announced, and I think that really puts us in a different league of palladium companies.
So the company's estimate's 15 million in ground at the moment.
That's including the flanks,
including
right?
The flanks, right?
Right, exactly right. Yeah.
Well, your strategic advisor Alexei Churakov's put out this number of 40 million ounces. How does that come about?
Right. So what Alexei meant is that on the Kola Peninsula, there've been a number of exploration taking place, right? So it's not only us with Anglo American that has been doing extensive exploration program within like a big chunk of land, which we are gradually going to apply for. Also, they've been Norilsk Nickel, as I mentioned, doing the exploration work. Then the Barrick doing the exploration again on a big license, palladium license, and some other players. And we are looking at those projects as well, because as a mining company, our main business is to produce the metal, which we are successfully doing at our operating mine. So we proved that we can do it, and we've done it before on different projects, our team members. And then basically our second job is to continually increasing our resource base. And we're looking at different options, and what Alexei mentioned is there's a number of deposits which are close to our deposit, which in total have this 40 million ounces. So that's what he meant.
So would that be on top of the 15, or would that be in total?
I wouldn't speculate too much about that, because that's something that we are looking at, right? So once we apply for those areas, and we will go through like a standard licensing process, which we've been doing before. So once apply for those areas, we will disclose all the details. Now, as a director, I wouldn't speculate about that.
Right. But have you begun the process of applying for them?
Well, the process of applying basically consists of piling together quite a significant amount of documentation. And of course, through the process of looking at different projects, we are just accumulating this information. And once we are ready, we apply, because applying is like just submitting documents. It's like pressing the button, but the preparation work needs to take place first.
On the operational side of things, I just want to have a couple of words about Sinosteel. Have you received that first payment yet?
Right. So basically, with the Sinosteel, we signed all the final binding documentation, which allows us to receive the first payment. We met the condition precedent, which includes receiving the production license, etc. We are not rushing into this first payment for a number of reasons. One reason is that we are not at the moment in need of any cash. And that's what our chairman announced on Friday last week, if I remember correctly, that we are in a good financial position. And as a matter of fact, as we speak, we are releasing another RNS saying that we are considering different options. We are reviewing which is the best option for us to pay dividend, because we are receiving not only the cash flow from our existing operations, but also there were quite a few warrants exercised recently, and we have now a pile of cash, which it makes sense to give back to the shareholders like myself and others who has been patient since 2008, for example, when I started to invest in the company. At a price of 5p, I invested first £1 million, signed the first agreement with the company. So basically it's something that we don't need at the moment, this 50 million
well, that's right.
subcontract.
It's
right?
a 50 million payment,
It's
is it?
50 million subcontract agreement,
right.
right, which is attributable to the subsidiary from Sinosteel. And the point is that we don't need this cash. We currently have more than enough. That's why we are considering options to pay dividend. And the works which we are doing now with CK and ourselves, they are sufficient to move us forward in terms of the preparation to the mining. And also we are in discussions, as announced, for example, with Lisigo Platinum and some others, and those companies have their own views in terms of which company should be an EPC contractor. And some of them like Sinosteel, like us, some of them have other preferences. It's not that Sinosteel are good or bad. I mean, some companies have their own preferences and their own experience. So we're not rushing into moving ahead with Sinosteel. We are doing works with different contractors in preparation for mining. At the same time, we just don't need to rush into it. When people are rushing, they normally make mistakes. So we want to do everything properly.
Well, clearly over the last, say, week or a few days, there's been a significant uplift in your share price. What is that based on? Is it speculation of a deal or of talks, or have talks begun?
Right. First of all, we announced that Lisigo Platinum CEO visited both our mines and have been doing due diligence for quite some time. So obviously we're having talks, right? And this is in public domain. And the fact that large investment banks like VTB Capital and Citi got interested means that something is going on. And I think I can't speculate too much about that, right? But people can judge from the size of the banks involved, and also from the fact that they agreed to work on a successful basis, and because obviously they don't want to waste the time, that we are in discussions. At the same time, I wouldn't attribute the share price re-rate to pure speculation. There's might be some speculative element into it, but at the same time, mind you, for example, I started to invest at 5p, right? Currently, the price is lower than 5p. And I invested not because of any kind of speculation, but because I assessed the fundamentals of the company. And I've been investing in mining space for quite some time. And I was looking at fundamentals of the projects, and also at some deals taking place. For example, at that point in time, a project just across the border in Finland in a very early stage was acquired by First Quantum for about $200 million with the same basket of metals, Manch Tundra. So I was benchmarking against this deal, and I think what we are seeing now is people are, both retail and institutional investors as well, are looking at the fundamentals of the projects, and they are looking at our cash flow, which is coming in, and they're assessing the probability of the dividend, and they are also looking at the strategic options that are open to the company, of course. We don't rule out anything happening, so let's see how it goes.
Well, that $200 million deal there, how does your resource, your PGMs and your amount of palladium compare to theirs?
Right. So basically, that project, which is across the border in Finland, it's at the point in time of the deal, it was back in 2008, earlier than that, in fact, when I started to invest in Eurasia. That project was in very early stage, so it was difficult to judge what kind of resource they had, because since then our projects has dramatically improved, and this project has definitely developed. But the NPV of that project on the basis of some kind of pre-feasibility study which they had, was like really early stage pre-feasibility study. The NPV was about 90 million US dollars at a discount rate of 8% or so. So it was quite a small project on NPV basis, and it was acquired for 200 million. The first quantum that acquired it, they realized the fundamentals of the metals being acquired, and they recently sold it to Boliden for 700 million. So they were right and done a good job.
Can you tell me how many groups or parties that you're talking to at the moment?
I cannot again speculate about any talks going on, except which is already in public domain. I think we mentioned quite a few names, not just Lisiga Platinum, but some other companies over time. So just need to look up our RNSs previously to Lisiga transaction, which we mentioned potential transaction recently. So basically, the fact that the banks decided to jump into this means that they would like to bring some kind of competition to this process. And I think it's a healthy competition for all the shareholders and will allow the investors to compete with each other and bring fair valuation, because competition obviously helps to assess and evaluate the project properly. And also we need to take into account that the palladium fundamentals has improved quite a lot over the last few years. The palladium ran into physical deficit, and I remember this very well from the metallurgical coal, which went into physical deficit end of 2016, and the price which was picking up then just re-rated from $50 to $200 per ton. And that's because when you are dealing with industrial products, which is metallurgical coal or palladium, which has industrial applications, right? Just people needed to produce their products. The steel makers need to operate the blast furnaces, otherwise the steel will just get stuck there, and you need to rebuild the furnace. So that's the same with palladium. Palladium is needed by the catalyst producers, and once this physical deficit, they'll just pay any price because it's tiny share within the price of the end product, so they can pay literally any price. And you see it with the rhodium, for example. Rhodium price currently 5,000 ounces. Nobody's crying about it because it's tiny share in the cost of the producers in the end product. So we see that there's definitely some similarity to what happened to met coal in 2016, when the price was re-rated like a few times within a few months, and then it stayed on a high level since 2016. So we are in the end of 2019 now. So the fundamentals are good, and that's obviously helping us and raising interest towards palladium. And with the recent transactions taking place, like Sibanye buying Stillwater Mining for $2 billion and Impala Platinum buying North American Palladium for $1 billion Canadian dollars. So with all these deals taking place, there's not too many companies which allow exposure to palladium, right? So for example, if you and I want to buy some exposure to palladium, you can't buy Stillwater, or it's already part of Sibanye, and Sibanye is diversified company, so it won't be exposure to palladium. And then basically similar to Impala, it's primarily a platinum company. So if you buy shares in Impala, you're buying exposure to platinum primarily, even though they acquired North American Palladium, but it's still a platinum company at the end of the day. And if you're talking about palladium companies which are in production and not yet consolidated and listed in London, you don't have too many options. So that's obviously helping us.
When you talk about fair value, what do you think this project's worth?
Again, I can't speculate about valuations, and what I think people need to keep in mind is that once VTB and CITIC agree to work with us, and the big banks, they're not going to bring any kind of small deals to us, right? So people can just look up and see what kind of deals they're doing. I think that would be reasonable to say. I can't speculate about valuation. Again, there have been quite a few deals taking place in the industry, and those are good deals to benchmark against.
What would you not accept then?
Well, I think now that the people that are interested in palladium, and obviously there's a lot of companies operating PGM space that nowadays want exposure to palladium because its fundamentals are very good. And also we have open pit mines, which is very different from typical PGM mine, which is underground. So we have a number of parties that are interested in palladium open pit, and I think they know each other more or less, and they know that there's a competition, especially after big banks joined the process. I don't think we will see some kind of unreasonable proposals. I think people are sensible of what's going on.
And realistically, how long might it take to get a deal done?
Right. So my experience suggests that it can be very different in timing. At the same time, what I want to highlight is that we probably shouldn't rush into it because there's no need for us to rush. We'd better assume that all the interested parties would be Russian because they more or less know each other, the banks are involved, and the banks know how to do this better than us. And we're not sitting still, of course, we are working hard as before. We are scaling up production, we are increasing our resource base, applying for additional areas, etc., etc. At the same time, we would be wiser to allow the interested parties to rush rather than ourselves be in a rush. It will definitely give us advantage in the tactical negotiation position.
You say there's no guarantee, of course, of a deal being done, but you're fairly confident?
Look, regarding this quote which I'm referring to, it's a very typical quote which any sensible nominated advisor would add to any press release, any RNS of an land-listed company. So they always add some kind of qualification, and there's no guarantee. It's normal qualification that at least our Nomad, I'm sure others, adding to, because there's Nomad, there are regulators, and that's quite normal. And people need to assess on their own, right? The probabilities. They can just see what's coming in the public domain from our side, and from the size of the banks involved, and the fact that they are operating on a success fee basis. So definitely they are assessing probabilities themselves when they make a decision to work without any retainer on the success fee. So I think those are the arguments which are reasonable to mention without going into something that I cannot say as a director.
Mm. Well, given that, as you say, you first invested back when it was 5p, you'd be looking for a multiple of that to see a decent return on your investment.
Look, I am not again going to speculate about the price, and if and when the offers are coming on the table, we'll definitely be looking at them and assessing, and we will go for the best deal on the table. And regarding my own investments, I'm not the only shareholder of the company and not the only director, so we'll be looking at the offers and finding the solution that works for all the shareholders.
Are you excited? Are you pleased with your investment so far?
Yeah, Eurasia has been doing very well, because when I started to invest, Eurasia didn't have any production license. All was exploration stage, which is typical investment that I've been undertaking. And now we have production up and running since 2016, pilot since 2018, industrial scale. And now we took over production ourselves, which is a big milestone and allows us to consume 100% of the margin. And that's something that very few junior companies achieve. Normally, the projects are sold after some kind of good drilling results or at best feasibility study. So in our case, we reached production stage, which is very rare. Of course, I'm very pleased to be already in production. And secondly, we are working with CK and other contractors to move our larger palladium dominant mine into production. And we have significantly increased our resource base with the flank applications, both at our operating mine and the Monchy Tundra mine. So there are no reason to be sad, and there are all the reasons to be grateful.
Dmitry, good to meet you. Thanks very much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.